Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Robert Richardson, Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Hospitality. Coming up on today's show, Robert takes the IOH show on the road.
Currently touring Broadway in America.
Phil forgets where he is.
Oh my God, why am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And Robert is a bit harsh on Phil.
You're going to be awful. You're not going to be very good.
All that and so much more as I caught up with Robert to learn more about the Institute's progress in the last 5 years. It was great to get some time with Robert again. He's been a fan of the show from the outset. This one's funny, honest, it's surprisingly emotional, and it might just change the story you tell yourself. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome back to none other than Robert Richardson.
Hi, good to be back.
How are you?
I'm really, really well, actually. I'm having a very good day, and the Institute is having a really great start to the year. We got confirmation this morning that our membership renewals for 2026 are our best in 7 years. We've had a net positive membership growth of 26% over the last 5 years, and at a time where people are being a little bit more choosy as to where they spend their money for very obvious reasons in the UK, life is very good, very positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say the UK, but in actual fact, the world is on fire.
Well, quite.
I shouldn't really laugh, to be honest.
No, well, I think if you don't laugh, you'll cry. It is a really difficult, really depressing time for many, many people at the moment. And I am head of an organisation that is not limited to one country. We're not UK hospitality, we are global hospitality. And we hear the challenges and also the successes of people across the world. So I don't have to turn on the news to see who's done what that's affected the livelihoods of millions of people. So I think whereas there is a lot of darkness and challenge, there is also a lot of positivity, though.
No doubt. It's the same in any circumstance where we have this state of the world. There's always something. I was speaking to somebody this morning, in fact, where we were talking about the fact that, it sounds really, really horrible to say, but had the war that is happening right now in the Middle East, we've obviously still got other wars going on in the world as well. Sometimes the timing of these things are, you can't put that into your forecasting, right? And as a business, you just can't. But maybe we're at a point now where we should start putting into, okay, so this is our original forecast, but let's just throw in some kind of economic global stress. And how does it then stress test? Well,
what did Monty Python say? No one expected the Spanish Inquisition. No. There's a lot of things that you just can't forecast. I remember in the pandemic, I was running a hotel and my bosses were asking for a new forecast every 15 minutes. And it got to the point where I just felt I was putting numbers on paper because everything was changeable. And this is no different. When we came into this year and wrote the budget, we were not expecting war in the Middle East. When we wrote the budget for last year, 2025, we were not expecting the Chancellor of the Exchequer to put a massive national insurance hike out there, which obviously everyone has found and continues to find challenging. Sometimes things happen that you just can't forecast. I think that's probably why they call it a forecast.
Well, indeed, it's not a guarantee.
No,
it's
no.
The best guess.
And I would argue we live in times that are probably more intemperate than maybe they have been in history. I never thought in my lifetime you would have war in Europe.
Yeah, and here we are.
Cheery.
Yeah, great. That'll do. Thanks very much. I mean, we've kind of got into this. We've alluded to what you do already. For the two people out there who may not know what you do, what is it that you currently do?
So I have the privilege of being the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Hospitality, and we are the professional body for those working in or studying hospitality and tourism management worldwide. We currently enjoy over 17,000 individual members. We set the professional standard for hospitality education qualifications in more than 24 countries. And effectively, our job is to make you the best version of yourself in an ever-evolving career.
Very
And
good.
I would say that in the near 90 years we've been doing it very, very well. I take a lot of comfort from the fact that I am the current person to sit in this role, and there's been brilliant people before me, and there will undoubtedly be brilliant people after me.
Stewardship, I think, is the what is it? I don't know if you've ever read the book Legacy by James Kurtz. It's a look at what the All Blacks, the all-conquering All Blacks rugby team of the kind of the noughties can teach us about life and business, and a lot of that is centred around the values in which they apply every day to what they do, and a major part of that is leave the shirt in a better place than you found it.
I completely agree. I mean, whatever we do in a moment of time. And I think if I do my job well, the person that comes in after me gets something absolutely brilliant that they will take to heights that I could never dream of. And I think that's really the point, because the organisation is bigger than any one of us. And the fact that we currently have 17,000 members is testament to the fact that it works. Again, we do things in a moment of time. My moment of time is now. My predecessor's moment of time was financial crash and a pandemic. So he had a very different world to navigate. My predecessor, so he led us from being the HCIMA to the Institute of Hospitality. So you could turn around and say, I've done better or worse than the person before me. The world was very different. The world's different to what it was 5 years ago when I took on this role, and I imagine the world will be very different in 5 years' time. So in any role, you can only be the best person, you can be the best leader, the best manager in the period of time that you're in. You can't be the best manager from 5 years ago or 5 years hence, because you don't have a crystal ball or a time machine.
No, so I mentioned right at the beginning of this that this is a welcome back to the show. This is your third appearance on the show, I think. Fourth?
Yeah, I think I was in one of your, I think it was your fourth. And then the wonderful Catherine Price and I took your podcast over.
How could I forget that?
For your 50th podcast episode, and we interviewed you, which was great fun. And then you had me back with our then chair of our board of trustees when I was appointed to this role back in deepest, darkest lockdown. So yeah, this is my fourth.
Indeed. So that would have been back end of 2020 that we had that conversation?
Yeah, it would have been spring 2020. So about 5 years ago.
Yeah, indeed. But what I really want to do actually is we kind of touched upon what happened in order for the set of circumstances that brought you into the IOH. But actually, I'd like to kind of revisit that a little bit, just in relation to where you and I had our first meeting, which you'll recall was in a hotel room with a massive £10 note. That's all I'm going to say. Because at that time you were a hotel GM, so that almost feels like a different life now.
It is. So back in 2020, I was running a coastal hotel in a lovely area, and that hotel had been a hotel for over a century. So it comes back to what I was saying about legacies earlier. I was a GM in a series of GMs that had come before me, really wonderful people. And I remember thinking that people like me don't get the profile that maybe your Park Lane GM would get. And I focused on a lot of work around people development. We did some great work with schools, we did some great work with people with disabilities, so basically bringing them into industry, and it got noticed. And then one day out the blue, you contacted me and said, would you like to be on my podcast? And I think I'd only ever...
I have no idea why I did that.
Oh, that's cutting. Yeah. I don't think I've been on more than one, maybe two podcasts previously, and I was certainly not a public speaker. So I've always believed that if an opportunity comes, you say yes and then you figure it out later. And that's what I did with you. And I remember I came up to London. This was, I think, late February, early March, and we were flying into lockdown in the pandemic, and the world was just a little bit different. And
Well, at that point, I remember just before you arrived at the hotel, I had a catch up with the hotel GM of the hotel that very kindly gave us some space. And I remember talking, it was the question that you ask anybody at that time, are you feeling the effects of what is currently happening in Asia?
Yeah.
And they were Asian owned as well. So the cold answer was, yes, for sure, we are. But that had not yet been realised to what we would then, that would then happen in March. But yeah, it was already quite an interesting time in which we found ourselves in.
It really was. And I remember we went into this podcast recording and we were in a hotel bedroom, which was, for February, swelteringly hot. And
it's a nice room, as I recall.
Sorry?
It was a nice room,
It was a lovely room, it was a lovely hotel. And I had prepared, I think I had about 4 pages of notes in front of me, because unlike today, you kindly sent me questions in advance.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
No. So I was over-prepared, and I was in a situation which doesn't really happen to provincial coastal GMs like me. So I was very grateful for the opportunity, and I was very pleased when the podcast came out, because I think when you launched, we were now in lockdown. So I think more people maybe listen to the podcast than they might have done if they were busily coming into summer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that was a wonderfully strategic move on my part, but that was 100% lucky in that respect that people started listening because they didn't really have a lot else to do. But it's really interesting what you raised there. I hadn't even contemplated the prospect of, you being a provincial GM, we shall just say, not, as you say, like a high-profile central London GM that don't have any issues getting profile raised,
No, because
right?
they have marketing teams behind them, PR companies, and more available platforms to demonstrate their good work. And they do some brilliant work. We did some brilliant work down in Kent, and it was starting to get noticed. I remember the then Secretary of State for the Department of Work and Pensions came to my hotel and awarded us for the work we were doing to bring people into employment via the Job Centre Plus. And I do believe good work does get noticed. But it was something that we always felt we had to fight a little bit harder to get recognised. So when I got your call out of the blue, and it's worth mentioning for those that don't know, we didn't really know each other at the time. I think we'd come into contact at things and probably exchanged pleasantries.
Yeah,
but
mainly through the IOH, I think it was. Yeah. I'd often clocked you operating in circles of sort of similar people that I knew, and always wondered who you were, what do you do, that sort of thing, and should you and I spend some time together, and that was probably what prompted the outreach.
I say 6 years later, I can't get shot at you.
I know. Well, that's kind of partly your fault as well.
Well, fair. So no, it was a big privilege, and then we did. And it was a really surreal experience. So I go to my hotel in the morning, check everything's okay. I'm on the train to London, recording this podcast with you, heading back, and it was new. It was a very different experience. It was a very lovely, wonderful experience to do, and I think feedback was good. You've had me back 3 times since, so it must have not been entirely awful. But it was a great opportunity, which I'm very grateful for, so thank you very much for letting me have it.
Bless. Yes, I also remember your story from, it's funny, the stuff, I remember the funny stories probably more than any other part of the show. And yours involved, I think you used the phrase, getting dressed in front of fairground mirrors or something like that.
Yeah, I use that a lot. So it's to do with one's perception of oneself versus everyone else's perception of you.
Yeah. Anyway, yes. So what I kind of want to focus on now then is what happened next.
What happened next?
Yeah.
So at the time you and I met, I was actually in the process of leaving the hotel I was running for another hotel.
Yeah, which you couldn't say on a public podcast.
Which I couldn't say on a public podcast. So I was in the process of leaving, and I was looking forward to the next opportunity. I've been a GM at my first hotel's GM for a good long period of time, and it had gotten to the point where I'd had to have a conversation with myself along the lines of, is this all you can do? Is this time to go, or is this your job for life? And I was very wary of the fact that, I have a long amount of career ahead of me. So to be put in one position for effectively forever, that's as wonderful as it was and as comfortable as it was, it's not entirely practical. So I'd started to look to challenge myself, and I'd taken on another role at a hotel and golf resort, and it was bigger. We had multiple golf resorts, off-site restaurants, etc. It was bigger. And then the pandemic happened. So all of a sudden, the job offer was frozen, and you knuckle down and you deal with the business you've got. And we went through the pandemic, and then the job offer came back, and I moved to another hotel, and we went through lockdowns and tier systems and reopening and closing again, and all the challenges that resonate with, I think, a huge amount of people, because I was by no stretch unique. And during that period, the CEO of the Institute, a gentleman called Peter Ducker, decided he was going to stand down. And that was great. He'd been the CEO for around 10 years. He was basically semi-retiring. This is not a part-time job, it's a full-time job, and the job was duly advertised. And over the course of about a week, people started tagging me in social media to see this job advert, and you sit there thinking, that's really flattering, but I don't know a lot about it. Great, lovely, I'm going to walk 2 inches taller, but that is that. And then people I didn't know started tagging me in it, and I thought after sort of a week and a half, there might be something in this. So I phoned the recruiter, a wonderful lady. I'd never met her, never been on her radar, called Hannah Haller. And she said to me, so you're the guy that keeps getting tagged in social media. Great to meet you. And we had this really lovely secular conversation where I talked to myself from a place of nervousness into applying for this job. I was really excited, and then to talking myself out of it. So I'd had this conversation for about 40 minutes or so. Wonderful, positive conversation. And I was leaving that conversation in a place of contentment. I was very happy to have had the chat, but you know what, I'm going to go back to running my hotel. And at the end of it, Hannah said something to me, and I think you might argue it was one of those times in your life where your life is changed. And she said to me, would you do me a favour? And I said, yeah. She said, we're not listening for interviews for, I think it was 3 weeks at this time yet, so you have time. So what I'd like you to do is think about what you would do if you applied for this job and write it down. And that's my favour. And I said, okay, yes, I'll do that. And I did. And after about a week, I thought I'd better look at this. So I had an app on my phone, a notes app, and every time I had an idea, I wrote it down. And I printed it off, and it came to 4 pages. And I thought, you know what, there is something in this. So I applied for the job. And I applied for the job from a place of contentment, I suppose, in that I had a job that I loved. I'd worked hard to be a hotel GM. Adjusted for the pandemic, which was a challenge everyone had, I was enjoying where I was in my world. And I'm now applying for a job where I was a very honest version of myself, not someone that was trying to be a mirror to the interview panel and basically saying what I think they want to hire me. So I was very honest. I said, look, if you hire me, we will... Yeah, this is what you're going to get. There will be youth engagement. We will have a youth council. We will put more of a focus on DEIB, and we will bring that into our management structure and into our boardrooms. We will look at restructuring our regional branches to ensure there's more opportunity. We will have a more commercial mindset. And they hired me, which meant I had to go and actually do what I said I would do. And
damn.
Yeah.
The cheek.
I know. People hold you to your promises.
Yeah, I mean,
you said earlier about my becoming a politician. Politicians are being held to their promises. That's a whole discussion there.
Well, that would be I'm down for that.
Yeah. And that's a generalisation. There are some politicians out there that actually do what they say, to be fair. So anyway, I took the job. And I had this lovely conversation with the then board. And it was lockdown, so we had team meetings every fortnight, and we just had one. So I said to them that I want this job, and I've accepted, but can we keep it secret for 11 days? Because I don't want my team to find out I'm leaving through anything else than me saying it. And I think in the current environment, turning around and calling an extra meeting for no other purpose than to say bye is a little bit egocentric and a little bit in bad taste. And the board were very kind and they agreed that, and I left. And the day that I was announced, and I think we talked about it on a podcast about 5 years ago with you, it was very, very positive. And I was very busy. I'm still in my hotel. It may be locked down, but you're busy. And someone kept ringing me, and they rung me throughout the day. And when I was going home, I finally got time to take that call. And they said, have you seen it? I was like, oh, yeah. And this is where ego comes in. I know I'm going to be the next CEO of the IOH. And like, yes, we know. I've seen that on social media. Have you seen the Twitter post? And I said, no, why? And they said, just look at it and call me back. So I pull over and I go on to Twitter where they've announced me. And that's the side. I've always found it weird. It's happened a couple of times in my career, but news stories and press releases because I've got a job, it is real. I find that so weird.
Yeah, I was actually the benefactor of that in the last career change that I made when it happened, and I was like, I mean, I didn't ask for it. It just happened. I was like, what is this?
You don't get offered a job and say, oh, by the way, could you put a press release out?
And somebody calls you Street instead of Phil. That's a weird one.
That I've gotten used to because people keep calling me Richard. So when someone calls you Richardson in the press release, it's not really that challenging. But my last 2 professional roles have been announced by press release, and when you see the caterer is running a story on you, it's just really, really strange. Yeah. Anyway, so I digress.
That doesn't happen to a young lad from Kent, right?
Well, apparently not, no. So I look at this Twitter post, and they've mistagged me. And instead of tagging me, they have tagged an empowerment site for plus-size women that take their clothes off as a career.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, there's some close crossover.
Yeah, so that was my announcement to the world.
Welcome.
Real women, real bodies was the name of the site.
Right.
So, and I was sitting there thinking, oh.
Yeah, interesting.
And
interesting how Well, I mean, that's the world of social media, right? Mistakes happen like
Oh
that.
yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing was, by the time I spoke to the IOH team about it, and again, it's lockdown, people are furloughed, the post had so much engagement, and so much positivity, frankly, I had to say, you know what, we should probably leave it up.
Just run with it.
Just run with it. And I think if you want to dig back far enough, it's probably still there.
But also, things like that as well, like mistakes happen, and it's done with the right intent. It's not, nobody was trying to associate you with a different organisation. I am sure, especially not one that's completely far removed from what you do by day. What you do by evening is up to you. But also, it's still publicity in the end.
Yes, yeah.
Still an opportunity to engage with people around, even if it is a mistake, that's an engagement opportunity to speak to somebody and set the record straight.
Well, I think social media is a powerful tool. It has certainly given people profiles. It gives the ability for people to connect on a global scale. And we really didn't have it 10 years ago, certainly not to the extent we have it today. And I think it has become a part of life. Something I love about my role is when our members write a book or they do something amazing, they make an effort to tell me or send me a copy of their book. And I think there's a joy in being a part of something that is larger than yourself. And social media amplifies that. And I think if I had to sum up where I am in my career, I think I'm in the privileged stage in that there is so much goodwill for the Institute and there's so much goodwill for the work that we do and my wonderful team. It's just a really lovely place to be. And even on your worst day, and everyone in every professional role or every aspect of life, you have days that are less ideal than others. It does lift you up a little bit and it is a lovely feeling. I think social media, when used correctly, is a very good tool for promoting that positivity.
Yeah. The key phrase there is when used correctly.
Yes.
For sure, because there are many who do not use, I'm not going to mention any American leaders or anything like that. No. But anyway, yeah, so that announcement happened. How did things progress there? Because that's 2020. 2021. So time flies, doesn't it?
Well, then you're in that period where,
oh my God, why am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah, and imposter syndrome creeps in. But then actually, I've still got a day job. And I'm not going to... The Institute has a CEO and it's not me. And I've got a period of time. So you sort of put it to the back of your mind because you have to be true to the business you're running at the time. So whereas I'd had this agreement with my predecessor that he would copy me into anything that would be material to my tenure, it's not my business. It's his job. He is running it. He should be left alone to do it. So I went through that period, as we all do, where we're transitioning from one job to another. But my focus was on the job that I was doing, not the job that I was about to do. And that's the right and proper way to do it because I had a brilliant team and they deserve nothing less than your total engagement and commitment. And then I took over the Institute and 5 years later, last month, it's now, and it really does not feel like 5 years.
No, tell me about it. And I think that part of that as well, and this is the kind of the weirdness of and wonderfulness of life, in fact, is that actually, if I go back to our original meeting for the podcast, you obviously you were kind enough to invite me to come and play a part in the IOH as well. In terms of, we obviously produced the IOH's podcast as well. And I often wonder about like the chance meetings of things, and you kind of alluded to it yourself, just like just say yes and figure it out like as you go. There's such a wonderful upside to just being that way minded.
There is, and imposter syndrome is real. I suffer from it. I left school at 16 and I went into hospitality, and I think I was written off early on. One of my headmasters said to my parents that when I'll get to an age, ironically the age I'm at now, and I'll wake up and I will wonder what I did with my life. And
still wondering.
Yeah, still well. And you do wonder sometimes how you got there, and I'm forever grateful that I am, but imposter syndrome is real. I never went to university, but I'm now a visiting professor at a university in Northern Ireland. I've just received an honorary doctorate from a university in England, and I regularly lecture at universities, not just in the UK, but abroad, and you always wonder why.
Yeah. Was there? I mean, that's not part of the job description, right? These are things that happen.
Yeah.
You get people approach you, I would imagine, say, "Would you come and do this thing?" And you say yes, and then go, "Why did I say yes?"
And you say yeah, why, and then you stress, and then you figure it out. I remember I was terrified of public speaking when I took this role. I'm by no means comfortable now, but we're very good in life at basically pointing someone at a stage and say, go and make a speech at a wedding or a funeral or a presentation for your business. We don't really teach them how. And
very good point.
Whereas in commercial business, you wouldn't give someone the P&L of a business or a department and just say, crack at it and figure it out as you go. You would develop them and train them and teach them. Public speaking is no different, and it is not a natural habitat. So the first time I had to speak publicly, it wasn't I'd been in post probably about 5 months, because again, remember, a good chunk of that time was lockdown. So those opportunities weren't there. And I had to speak on stage at our first post-pandemic event at the end of September 2021. And I stressed about it every minute of every day for the month of September. And it made me miserable. And genuinely, the morning I had to do it, I would have quit. I had worked myself up into such a state I was ready to go. And then I did it, and the world didn't end, and people were kind. And you have to sit there and think, there are voices that will creep into your head and that will tell you...
What is this story I tell myself?
Yeah, you're going to be awful. You're not going to be very good. You are, worthless. And that is imposter syndrome. And it's something that constantly I do live with. And I know a lot of other people live with it. And it is nasty. It is a horrible thing. But you have to be analytical. And I think I've got a very analytical brain where I look at the institute, I look at our P&L, I look at our membership figures, and that tells me we're doing something right. And I play a small part in that. So that tells me people vote with their feet. I'm doing something right. So at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm stressed because I've got to make the speech at the fellows' dinner, you know what, it will be fine. The world will not end. You are trained. I won't go anywhere near a stage if I haven't rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And I actually remember, I hadn't thought about it until I've just said it. Back in the early days, I was forever phoning you and rehearsing my annual dinner speech down the phone. Yeah, I've forgotten about that.
I hadn't.
I've got this thing. I will not go on stage if I haven't rehearsed my speech 7 times.
I remember you saying, because you, like anybody who wants to become better at something, sometimes you can't get there on your own. You need the assistance of others to help you get there. I remember you talking to me about the fact that you spent some time with a public speaking coach.
Yes.
Which is the right thing to do when if this is part of your job that requires you to do a few more of these things than perhaps you're comfortably aligned to, then it stands to reason. Then seek the help of somebody who can help you get better at it.
Well, the reason I sought help is towards the end of the year, I'd spoken internationally, I'd spoken at our annual conference, Passion Hospitality, and I'd lost my voice. And I went through a good month, including Christmas, where I really didn't sound like me. And I went to the doctors and I said, look, this really doesn't sound like me. And they misdiagnosed me as potentially having cancer. And I got a letter one day from the NHS. I opened it, and in big red letters, it said urgent cancer referral. And it was a gut punch. It was terrifying. And I did the grown-up thing of, I screwed the letter up, I put it in the bin, I stressed for 2 hours, and I got the letter out. And I made my appointments, I went, and it turned out that the symptoms for thyroid cancer in men are the same as laryngitis. I just strained my voice.
Right.
So I'd had the tests, cameras down your throat, up your nose, hugely unpleasant, very stressful time. And then one day I get a letter that says, congratulations, you do not have cancer. This must be very good news. And the weight of relief was unimaginable. And I have so much sympathy for people that find themselves in that situation. And the news is not as good as it was for me. But it made me think, if I don't want to be a public speaker, I'm in the wrong job. So I started looking for a coach, and I hired a coach, wonderful actor called Rory Callaghan, who is a West End stage actor. He'd been in Downton Abbey. He was currently touring in Broadway in America. Really lovely guy, and I got him to teach me. And he taught me how to actually speak publicly. And he was phenomenal. Like if people are complimentary about my ability on stage, and I wouldn't count myself as one of those people, I owe a huge debt to him for doing that. But it comes back to my original point. We teach people how to do the job. I mean, when it comes to public speaking, we leave people to get on with it. So professional training was essential for me, and I've never had the problem since. I've never lost my voice, I've never strained my voice. I stress a lot less because I know techniques around it and I know how to manage it. And I'm really grateful that I did it. My only complaint with myself is I didn't do it sooner.
Well, but easy with hindsight, as it were.
Isn't everything?
Yeah, for sure.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Sure, but I think, part of that as well, and this is not just about public speaking, it's again, we're coming back to the phrase that I mentioned around the stories that we tell ourselves. It's centered around that whole kind of, the fear of doing something is usually worse than actually doing it.
Yes.
And that's, we stress around moments. Like if you're going into a sales meeting where you're going, and I'd say this as somebody who's been in this situation, more or less every week for the last 12 months. Every week, what you do is scrutinized.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of my brain that goes, oh God, here we go again. But then there's the other part where you realize this is just going to be one moment of being uncomfortable. But actually, uncomfortable is where you're going to learn something and get better at something.
Yeah, no one develops from a place of comfort. No one just sits there and says, I'm going to push myself forward. I know I'm a massive procrastinator. I need to push myself forward to do things. And I think I'm not the person I was 5 years ago because I've pushed myself and I've been pushed by others. And that is a very, very positive thing. I think we work in an industry where we are brilliant at people development. We are brilliant at empowering and encouraging people. And I count myself very lucky to have spent time with people like yourself that have pushed me on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't
You're
realise I'd played
Hope
such
the check's in the post.
part. Yeah, yeah. So let's complete. Actually, do you know what? I'd love to just focus on the point around like getting a health scare like that. This is coming out a lot more these days. Effectively, our personal lives and our business lives have historically been two separate things, but in actual fact, one cannot flourish without the other.
Not anymore, I think. I think a lot of that, again, is down to social media. We are very good, certainly in hospitality, but other industries too, in publicising what we do. You yourself have put a huge amount of LinkedIn content out over the last year.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's great. It's always good to read, and it's very honest. We share our experiences with honesty. You've shared health journeys. I've shared things I'm doing and why I'm doing them. And I think, for me, I'm answerable to 17,000 members, and it's as close to a political job or a job in government as I think I ever want to get. And you always have to have an answer. But to your point, we share ourselves a lot more in what is a world wide web, and the clue is in the title. So there are more people in the world that know you and know about you than you actually know yourself. And what you choose to put out there is what they will see. So it is always a carefully curated version of yourself. And there's a joy in when you put something out online and people respond with positivity. And there's also a darkness to it because people look at you and they look and feel they have a degree of ownership. So sometimes people get effectively bullied on social media. I know a CEO of another industry body, and people are very quick at the moment to make hurried judgments over what they feel as performances. So we now have freely available AI, and people now replace him in photographs with potatoes. Because that is what they feel empowered to do, because he's shared that content, and they feel they have every right to share their feelings that way. And it is bullying. I have zero tolerance for it. I think the block button is our friend. There are people out there that would rather have an argument, and that's their prerogative, but it does take two people. And I think, especially when you're arguing with an anonymous social media account, you're never going to win. So why try? Just block it.
Remove the oxygen, they cannot breathe.
Remove the oxygen, yeah. I have come out 2 months ago now from an 8-year battle with a stalker. And this person saw a version of me professionally and felt that there was some sort of kinship or imaginary relationship there. They felt they had more ownership over me than was, realistic or appropriate. And I can say I've spoken to you on this one podcast more than I'd spoken to this person in my life. And they were a constant presence in my life for 8 years. And we went to court. It became a police matter. The CPS decided it met the threshold for prosecution. and they now have a judgment against them, and I have a restraining order. And it was a very dark, very unpleasant time. But I don't think I would have had that if I wasn't visible through social media or running businesses with profile.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, by the way. I can only imagine that must have been a pretty horrible thing to kind of go through. But also kind of, it really kind of cements my point about the fact that, especially in a public-facing role whereby, as you said, you've got 17,000 members that look to you for direction of travel, but also the people who are potentially looking to join, who, and the ones who don't want to and all of that, they're still going to see you, still will have an opinion on things. And I think a lot of the time we take it for granted that, people who are in a public position, and I speak of politicians here as well, they're still human beings.
Absolutely.
And they've still got their everyday life to deal with.
I believe everyone has the right to an opinion, and debate is a positive thing. What they don't have is a right to be an abuser or a bully. And I think with me, if you can't articulate your point in a respectful manner, especially if it's a disagreement, you've lost the argument. I have a rule for, by and large, no politics, no profanity, no religion, because to some people that's triggering. It doesn't mean I won't have the debate, but I would always come at it from a place of positivity and a place of respect. But conversely, social media is a huge positive. One of the biggest joys in my world since I took this role is seeing people become Institute members, joining our College of Fellows and posting online how much it means to them. This week alone, 3 wonderful posts from people saying how wonderful it is. I can think
of one.
I'm sure you can.
Straight away. Yeah.
But
the lovely Marco.
The lovely Marco at the Corinthia. Yeah. But the joy that they have in saying, I am a fellow of the Institute of Hospitality, or I am a member of the Institute of Hospitality, and then reading the comments from people that are in their world, not mine, and looking at the joy and the positivity is such a wonderful feeling. And it makes you think, for every idiot that is going to put a picture of a potato instead of you online, or is going to stalk you or have an argument, there are 100 wonderful, genuine people who really want to build up people. And it is so easy to be positive and so lazy to be negative. If you want to get out of bed today and say, you know what, I'm going to find a reason to have an argument with you, great, you go and do that. You live your life, but it won't be anywhere near me. But the people that want to turn around and say, fabulous, well done for becoming a fellow, becoming a member, passing that exam, they're the people I want in my world, and they're the people I want in my organisation, because they are wonderful, selfless people.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very privileged in that we have a wonderful organisation of genuinely caring, considerate people. And we worked hard. We did have a very, very small minority of negative people, vocal negative people in our membership. And we turn around and say, look, this is the journey we're on. And if you want to be part of that journey, we would love to have you. But if you don't, it maybe isn't the organisation for you. Yeah. And we've always been honest in our direction of travel. And I've always said about me, you will always get an answer. You might not like the answer, but you will always get an answer. And I will always explain where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And 17,000 people have agreed with it, and that is a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
But not the 17,000 in itself is just a number. But actually, if you think about from your time here, that number has risen to 17,000. It's not.
No. We have, in my time at the Institute, we've had net positive membership movement of 26%. So by and large, 1 in every 4 members, it's a little over 1, is new. And that's a wonderful feeling. We've seen great engagement with entry-level talent, so under 30s. We've worked very, very hard to grow our international membership. We signed an agreement towards the end of last year, we've really seen the benefit this year, which has given us 1,000 new hospitality leaders between Switzerland and Saudi Arabia. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So a really good show of faith in what we do. And it's always wonderful. On a Monday, I get an email from our membership department and it tells us our membership figures. And it's been wonderful, and especially against the backdrop of a country that is dealing with economic challenges, a cost of living crisis, and a government that gives every appearance of being anti-business, and a world that is challenged right now. So the fact that in certainly the toughest times in my lifetime, we are going forward. By every metric, we are going forward. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Yeah. Why do you think there has been an uptick in membership?
I think you only want to join an organisation or a business or a social group that you feel you can belong in. So if you look at something, so one of the above, and you feel you have the ability to be a part of it, to belong, to grow, then you will want to be a part of it. It is all about where you see yourself and do you see your values aligning with the organisation. I'm a strong believer that certainly in 2026, if you are looking for a job and you have two businesses, two packages, two offers that are by and large identical, but one shares your values and one doesn't, you are going to go with the one that shares your values. And I think we've done a very good job at saying we are here for all of you, whatever stage you are in your career, from entry-level talent to retirement and every part in between, we're here for you. We've worked really hard to be a much more inclusive body because in 2026, that's what people want. They want inclusivity. We've given a lot of engagement to youth through a youth council. We've never had that before. So I think we've worked really hard to say we are here for all of you, not just the perception of a part of you. And I think that's important.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, these are rules of life, really. I mean, right, it's the same in any place of work. You generally stay somewhere where you feel engaged and that you've found your people. Yes, there's a job to do. It's the same with you guys. You've got a job to do as well. But in the end, it does come down to alignment.
It is. And we have to remember, the Institute is not a public service. It is a membership organisation for its members. And because we're large, because we're visible, because we are nearly 90 years old, people feel they have a degree of ownership over that. And that's lovely. That's a very, very positive thing. One of the things we've worked really hard on is our charter status application. And to do that, we've had to be more visible in government. And that's meant we brought on board our current president, the Right Honourable Viscount Thurzo, a member of the House of Lords, a wonderful man. Our chair of the board of trustees, Martin Traynor, he is the former Crown representative to the Cabinet Office for SMEs. Again, a wonderful guy.
But also not random politicians. That's the thing. They have their heart and roots
in
within
hospitality and in Institute membership. We've not gone out and grabbed a random civil servant or a random politician. We have worked hard to find an alignment between our membership and government, because it is ultimately government that is the gatekeeper of our chartered ambition. Conversely, we've worked really well with the MOD. So the Ministry of Defence, they have catering, they have hospitality. We have over, at any given time, 350 MOD members. And in January of this year, they officially endorsed our application and put on record that the Ministry of Defence, one of the top 3 bodies in government, turned around and said, we feel a Chartered Institute of Hospitality is in the national interest. That's a huge, very important, very powerful statement. And we worked hard to get that. And they didn't have to do it. It really doesn't change their world, but it means the world to us, not just as an organisation, but as an industry. And I think it's testament to where the Institute is in 2026. And to your point earlier, you lead an organisation in a point of time. And our point of time is very different to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we didn't have government engagement. We didn't necessarily need it or see a value. And in 10 years hence, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. But for now, for 2026, we are aligned with government. We are not and never will be a lobbying body, but we do have a voice. And we found it, and we found people are actually willing to listen.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, if I may, one of the proudest achievements of my time is, and it's a project actually you worked on. We brought you on board and we were very grateful for your input, but we worked with government to set the UK government recognised standard for hospitality recruitment. I don't think in yesteryear that might be something the Institute would have been involved in, but we're now, I think, more relevant to the needs of that.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it. And putting that out last year and saying, you know what, we work with industry partners, we work with government partners, we work with our youth council, we work with employers, we work with you, and we have delivered the recognised standard for hospitality recruitment. It is a wonderful achievement.
No doubt. And this is another wonderful byproduct, I suppose, is that, one, the work will never be done, right?
No.
There will always be something to do to make things better. It's the very nature of the beast, especially if you want to be in existence for the next 90 years. Evolution is a massive part of that. Evolution
is important. You can't thrive in life or business if you don't evolve. We're always the version of ourselves in the moment versus staying as we were. You're not the person you were 10 years ago, and you're not the person you will be 10 years hence.
Indeed. Are we leaving anything out there from your journey, from when we last met up to where we're at now?
No, I think it has wholly been positive. Like everyone, there's been challenges along the way, and I've been very honest about that. I like to hope that people look at me and see someone who is honest. I run an organisation in an industry that is honest, it is effervescent, it is visible, and I hope that is how I come across. And I'm very honest about sharing my failures as well as hopefully my successes. And I think it's important to show that we're all fallible, but when we make a mistake, we learn from it.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to, like, the best of times to keep everybody happy. You know, you've got 17,000 people that are, you know, you've got to try and keep happy. That's not going to happen every single minute of every single day.
I came to the realisation quite early on in my time here that it's not going to happen. What you can do is set a clear path, and you keep people informed. You explain why you're making the decisions that you've made, and it is for them to decide whether they align with them or not. And sometimes no, they don't, and sometimes yes, they do. And it's great. It's an honest approach to how we conduct ourselves. But again, we are enjoying membership growth at a time where membership organisations are challenged. So I would argue that the decisions we make are the right ones. And I will say, and it's very, very important, the decisions I make are not in isolation. I have a wonderful team. You know, because you join us 4 times a year, I effectively shut the Institute. I take the entirety of the Institute team to a venue or one of our offices, and we spend a day strategizing. And there are very few decisions about the direction of travel, or more specifically how we go from A to B to C, that every member of my team has not had an opportunity to put their input into. And that is important, because you want people to join you on the direction of travel. People don't want to be told. And I'm lucky that I filled the Institute, or I should say the Institute is filled with, because I have wonderful team members that were there before me, with smart, caring, dedicated people that want to see our success.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the great thing that I've seen in those meetings as well has been that some great ideas just come out of
wonderful
that
ideas.
where you just stop the noise of the day-to-day for a second, just come together. This is the rough theme of the day that we're going to chat about. Here are some things that we're thinking about, and then, you know, some of the ideas that have come up from within there. That's how you continue.
100%. And any leader that is so arrogant as to say, I am the finished article and I know everything, they are doomed to failure. Because
God, is that what I'm doing wrong?
well, I didn't want to say, I was going to break it to you later, but there are people out there that are like that. The vast majority, happily, are not. And I've always looked at my teams as focus groups, because you've got a huge group of people, different ages, genders, different backgrounds, different life experiences. And you know what? That's basically your membership or your customer base. And the fact that they're coming together, looking at things with different perspectives, is brilliant, because how lovely is it when one day you look at something and say, you know what, that is genius, and I would never have come up with that in a million years. And that's such a good feeling as the leader of the organisation. Conversely, as the person that comes up with the idea, how wonderful is it to see that your voice has been heard and we've gone off and done it?
Yeah, totally. It's not rocket science.
No, it's not.
But apparently it is sometimes. But no, that's great. I mean, the last question really that I have for you is look at all the notes that I've written. Absolutely not one. That's how riveting the conversation's been.
Look at the sheet of questions you gave me in advance, which is a blank sheet of paper, faithful listener.
It should be conversational. It's really around the future. I mean, we've got, obviously, the charter status is a major body of work.
Yes.
What else is in the pipeline? What's next for the IOH?
Yeah, my predecessor, very early on in my time here, said to me, congratulations, you're the Chief Executive of the Institute of Hospitality, and that's the first line of your obituary written. So you always think about legacy, and I think, as we touched on earlier, it's important to leave any business or organisation better than when you took it on. And the criterion for better is not how it performed when you took it over, it's how it performs in the environment that it's in. So it is very important that you distinguish between the two. There will forever be challenges. There will forever be different ways of doing things. Charter status, hugely important. Youth engagement through our youth council, hugely important. We hired a diversity lead, hugely important. Setting the standard for hospitality recruitment, hugely important. We're in a time at the moment where hospitality education is in decline, so we have a lot of work to do there. We see a lot more direct entry to businesses, therefore professional development is required. So as long as we keep pivoting and maintaining our relevance in what is an ever-changing world, then I don't think the work is ever going to be done. It's just going to be done to the expectation of the time that you're in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that strikes me as a wonderful way to wrap it up. Congratulations on 5
Yeah,
years.
it's insane.
Incredible.
Absolutely insane.
Time just, it's ridiculous. The time just flies. But
You tell me, I've got a question for you. You know, from when we were in that very hot hotel room recording the podcast 5-6 years ago
we
now,
should stop saying that in public.
to now, how do you think I've changed?
I think it's unrecognisable, quite frankly. I mean, I would say this as a podcaster. There was no podcast before there is now. It continues to grow as well. The Youth Council is a major thing for me. This is something that, as somebody who's been really trying to find my voice for probably about 10 years now, we always historically have always looked to leadership to be the voice. But in actual fact, for me, certainly every single voice is important. And even probably more so for the generations coming through, because these are the future generations. So it's important that we keep that voice alive, and that's been happened. And I think just generally speaking, there seems to be a willingness to try things. Not everything's going to work, but certainly the energy around it is way different, a lot more effervescent, I think. And I think as well, I don't have your statistics in front of me, but it certainly feels way more diverse than it was, say, 5-10 years ago.
I think something I tell my team a lot is we need to be the voice for positivity. Professional development is positive because you always develop as a person. So whatever period of professional development you go through, at the end of it, you become a better version of yourself. And I think that's positive. So go onto Twitter or the news, there's enough challenge and darkness in the world. So we will push to the positive, be the voice of positivity, because we're in an industry where there's so many wonderful things, so much creativity and generosity and care. So why would we not amplify that voice?
100%. The world needs more positivity, and for those of us who can, we absolutely should.
Couldn't agree more.
Brilliant. Well, let's leave it there then, shall we, on a positive note.
I'll see you for podcast number 5.
Yeah. Absolute pleasure to spend some time with you again.
And you.
And I'm sure I shall see you again soon.
You will. Thank you very, very much.
And there we have it. Robert Richardson on leadership, legacy, positivity and the stories we tell ourselves. A huge thank you to Robert for his honesty, his vulnerability and for continuing to be a voice for positivity in our industry. We will of course be back next Wednesday with another amazing story from hospitality, so until then, have an awesome week and I'll see you then.